Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another card using the Simon Says Stamp Mushroom Stems Wafer Dies. I have started a playlist of all my videos because this is the 6th video, I think. Yeah. So, playlist has been made. It will be linked at the end of this video. And yeah, this time I decided to go kind of clean and simple because I haven't done that yet. And I had a rough idea, as always, in my head. And I wanted to use these color blend cardstock panels. I've used the pastel ones in like 2 or 3 recent videos. And these really bright color ones were the first ones to come out a couple months ago. I forget when they came out. They've been out for a while. I've been hoarding them like I hoard everything. So, part of my mission to start using things. So, rough idea. I wanted to use this pinky purple blend panel. And then I pulled out some older die sets that I've had. The Stacked Hearts Wafer die set, which came out. Actually, I have it right in front of me. What is the year on this thing? 2015. It is an oldie but a goodie. And I also pulled out the rounded corner rectangles. These have also been out for several years. And then a couple of newer-ish ones. This CZ Design Here For You wafer die set. And then I'll get to the stamp set later on because I'll use that on the inside of the card. So I had kind of laid out, you guys saw at the very, very beginning, I had kind of laid out the wafer dies just to kind of give me an idea of, sizing, where things are going to go. And once I, had that little bit of an idea, I trimmed down all my pieces so that then I can just sit and die cut. It's the same, process I do with everything, do all the steps at once. So I got all my, cardstock scraps first, or in this case, it was that color panel that I trimmed into pieces because I decided to use it for the tops of the mushrooms as well as the sentiment. And then I end up using the entire piece because I end up trimming it down even more and using it for the little heart embellishments and whatnot. So once I've got all my cardstock, and specialty cardstocks ready to go, then I just start die cutting all the pieces and I set them aside because I'll do all the assembly once everything's die cut. So for this card, all I used was my little EMPRESS mini die cut machine. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. Yeah, it's great. I don't really have a whole lot to say. It's great. I've been super happy with it. It's just a nice little, desktop machine. I do still love my little, I have, a couple little mini manual die cut machines, or, the little tiny ones, like my little honeybee one, which is similar to the Hero Arts one. Those are great. It's one of those sorts of things where you don't think you really need it. I always was kind of like, when they first started coming on the market way back, the little mini machines, I was like, really? Oh, man. I get more use out of the smaller machines because you look at how many smaller die cuts we do. Yeah, I use them even more. Would I ever give up any of my bigger machines? Heck no. And eventually, I do want to get the big EMPRESS. It's a little more difficult sometimes to get those things in Canada. Although people have been asking me, Simon Says Stamp does carry these. Carries the EMPRESS Mini and the big one and plates and all that stuff. So I will have a link to the EMPRESS Mini with my supplies like always. So anyhow, after I did all my die cutting, like I said, I die cut what was left of that color blend panel with that Stacked Hearts because I was like, ooh, I could inlay some of these, or the bare minimum. It's like I've got all these little extra heart embellishments, So, got everything die cut. I assembled my little mushrooms, super, super simple, as I've shown in all the videos. And then the Stacked Hearts wafer die itself, I die cut from Simon's white glossy cardstock. So, it just gives it that little extra something, but isn't going to be, because again, I was aiming for kind of clean and simple. This is my version of clean and simple. For me, honestly, I love clean and simple. I love the look of it. Literally love it. Kathy Zielski, Chef's Kiss, you all know, obviously. I struggle with that, though, because I'm always like, it needs more. It's like you need to have the splatter, more bling. It needs more cowbell. Anyway, I genuinely struggle with clean and simple because you guys know I like to add everything. But this is one of the ways to amp things up a little bit when you're keeping things a little more simple is using like, yeah, glossy cardstocks or a glitter cardstock, something with a little bit of texture, you know, while still keeping things fairly simple and not the typical AmyR 15-step process per thing, you know? Anyway, I adhered everything together. I adhered that stacked hearts die cut to the rounded rectangle. And I just use little dabs of craft tacky glue. For the little mushrooms, I just use some thin foam squares. So it just pops them up, gives them a bit of dimension. That is something that I find makes a big difference when it comes to going more clean and simple, is just adding dimension. So popping things up with a bit of foam tape, foam squares, that sort of a thing. It just gives everything that little extra, you know, something, a little bit more, dimension, a little more effort without, again, getting super, super involved. So this also works too when you're kind of, you know, newer to stamping or newer to card making. You don't have a bajillion supplies, you know, and 15 different coloring methods and blah, 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 blah. Foam squares, man. You can just keep things, you know, simple and basic, but pop it up with a bit of dimension and it makes a big difference. So I inlaid some of those little hearts into the background. And then, of course, I added splatter. Really, it needed it. It did. I was aiming for that regardless, because with the color blend cardstock, like, I love the color, but it's like it needed something. So I just took a little bit of white gouache. I put the background into my splat box. I got my little fan brush, added a tiny bit of water to thin out the white gouache, splattered that onto that entire little panel, and then let it dry. And it didn't take very long to dry. And yeah, honestly, for whatever reason, in my head, in the beginning when those color blend panels came out, I for some reason didn't think splatter would dry on them, because like splatter sometimes, most of the time, won't dry on things like vellum, but that's a whole different substrate. So yeah, I'm liking these color blend panels. Like, I have die cut them, I've splattered on them, I did hot foiling in a recent video. Yeah, they're great. I'm enjoying them, and I'm, for the most part, not hoarding them. So win-win. So after I had done the splatter, let that dry, the sentiment, I die cut the top layer from the corner of that same panel, which is kind of nice. It goes more like the darker pink to light pink, and then the mushrooms are the kind of darker pink to purple. So I was in a very pinky purple mood, hence me choosing this panel. Again, another idea is like that whole pack, you could just mass produce and do an entire set of cards like this with that. And then each one would be a different color. So it'd be kind of like a rainbow set of cards, which would make a nice little like gift if you wanted to do sort of a generic sentiment. Either one like this or like just a hello sentiment, that sort of a thing. And it would look really cute, you know, as a whole set. But again, random ideas, not enough time. So I cut the back of the layers behind the sentiment so that it could layer easily on top of the mushrooms there on the left-hand side of it. And then again, craft tacky glue, stacked it all together, put it in place. And then for the inside of the card, I had die cut the remainder of that color blend panel, and with just the tops of those little mushroom stems wafer dies. And then assembled just the small one and the medium size one, because I was like, those need to go on the inside because they just must. It's the rules. So I was going to say I don't make them, but I do make the rules. This is my channel and these are my cards. So I assembled those. I stamped a sentiment from the CZ Design Well Wishes stamp set that coordinates with that wafer die that I used on the front. So I stamped that in Simon's Orchid Positively Saturated ink, adhered my little mushrooms, and then I grabbed a couple more of those little hearts that I had die cut and, you know, just adhered those around as well, just to finish off the inside of the card. And then for the main little panel there, I decided, again, pop it up with just a little bit of dimension. Nothing too crazy. So I just used Simon's Big Mama foam tape. For those that haven't been around as long, you know, if you're newer to my videos, I've been using this stuff for years. Absolute favorite foam tape. It's super thin. It's about half the thickness of standard foam tape. So they call it Big Mama because the roll is enormous. Think like about the size of a vinyl record, roughly, something like that. But the actual foam itself is nice and thin, so I can get dimension without a ton of bulk, and I love it. So I put that on the back of that panel, pop this onto the card. As always, you could be done here, but of course I'm going to add bling. I went through my stash, and shockingly, I had to go through it for a bit to find a color that would work with these. And you guys know I have a lot of bling. But these Studio Caudia Mallow crystals were just the right shade of purple. They just worked. Just subtle, nothing too crazy. So I kind of put just a few of those onto this card. And once I was happy with that, I'm going to adhere these into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And once the glue dries, like they look more opaque because the glue goes on white, but it does dry clear. And it makes the crystals just a teensy bit more subtle once the glue is completely dry. So got those adhered into place, and that finished off my card. So like I'd mentioned earlier, I will have a link to my playlist for the Mushroom Dies wafers, the Mushroom Stems wafer die set, because it's my current obsession. There will be more videos coming because I got ideas, man. So I'll have a link to that. I'll have a link to my blog post below the video that will have like picture links to the supplies I used. All that info will be directly below the video if you guys are interested. And thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.